Until the NFL and college football season starts, we will be taking a deep dive into some of the win totals and schedules. And Jovan, we're starting off with my arch nemesis, the Colorado Coach Primes, a.k.a. the Colorado Buffs. Last year, Colorado won their first 3 games of the season, but then they went on to limp to the finish line. And this year, Jovan, their win total is at 5.5, 2 wins higher than their win total last year, but their schedule is harder and they're in a much better conference this season. Let's break down their schedule and let's hop in and look at their matchup for week 1. Jovan, they're only -8 opener in this game, now at -6.5 against North Dakota State. Do we think they win this game? Is this a layup? Is this a cupcake? Or is this a sneaky tough week 1 matchup for the Buffs?
It's tougher than it looks on paper. We've known what North Dakota State can do as an FCS team, so there's no pushover in terms of bye games. I don't think it'll be easy, but I do think Colorado, we can mark that one as a win for them.
Okay, we'll give them a win. I would not be surprised if North Dakota State covers that game, though, and gives them a run for their money. All right, but we'll give them a W here. We want to be generous. We don't want to be too outlandish with these takes. Not yet. All right, let's go to week 2, Jovan. They're 1-0, just like they were last season. Now they got to go to Nebraska, a team who they got to play, I believe, in week 2 of last year as well, but at home. And they did blow them out on paper, but that game was much closer than the final score depicted. Way too many turnovers for Nebraska. Jeff Sims was not that guy. Do we think they have a tougher test on their hands on the road in week 2, Jovan, at Nebraska this time around? The spreads, Nebraska's laying -6.5.
I do think they have a little tougher of a time. Obviously, last year was the Jeff Sims disaster class. Now you get Dylan Raiola in there, who a lot of people are excited about, rightfully so. I still think this is Colorado's game. Call it an upset. They're probably going to be touchdown dogs. I think they are in that game, but I do think they go in there and get a win. Again, I don't think it'll be easy, but I want to give that one to them. Maybe you feel a little different.
You know, I don't think that's going to be a win, but I will be generous. We'll give them a win, and we'll have them start up 2-0 like they did last season, okay? Because we saw them fall apart last year. I'm not worried about it if they get out to a hot start. Just wait till they get into conference play, and we'll get there in a moment here, Jovan.
Yeah.
All right?
And here's what we can agree on right here. I think they lose one of these 2 games between Nebraska and Colorado State. So I want to give them the win at Nebraska, and I think you may want to give them the loss going into Fort Collins against Colorado State week 3.
I certainly do. Do we remember all the shit talking we heard last year in this matchup? 2 rivals out west, Colorado and Colorado State. I mean, these teams, these coaches were going at it before the game, and Colorado did squeak out a win last year. This season, in 2024, they have to go on the road and play at Colorado State. Jovan, I would not be surprised if this team upsets Colorado. This is their Super Bowl. This game is everything for them. And as of right now, Colorado is only laying a touchdown in the look-ahead lines for week 3. That is not a very large spread for, the biggest and baddest team out there in Colorado. I would not be shocked to see that game go down to the last possession. And I think Colorado State pulls off the upset at home and gets revenge for last year.
Yeah, I'm with you. So we can call it either way you want to spin it. We both have them 2-1 after week 3.
And that is being very generous. I would not be shocked if they lose 2 of those first 3 games, but we'll be nice to start this off for Coach Prime, and we'll have them go 2-1 to start out the year. All right, not as good as last year's 3-0 starts, but 2-1, I think the Buffs will probably take that. Now the schedule starts to get a little bit tougher. All right, they got to go play Baylor on September 21st, Jovan. Do we think Colorado wins this game, or is Baylor going to teach them a lesson in this new conference?
I do really like Baylor this year. I think they're a bowl team. Dave Aranda back against the wall on the hot seat. He's starting to take play calling duties. So I do like that team this year. But again, I'll be generous since this game is in Colorado. I do think we can give the win to them.
All right. Sure, we'll give them a win. We will be extra nice early on in the schedule because we saw them thrive last year early on. 3-1 through the Baylor game. Now is when it starts to get tricky. All right, you dive into conference play here. They got a game on the road at UCF, Jovan, a team you were very high on. What do you expect to happen in this game?
I think they get destroyed in the bounce house by UCF. That team I am really, really high on this season with KJ Jefferson, and I would say one of the best running back groups in America. And I think they're going to run all over the Buffs. The bounce house is a really tough place to play. I think this game mirrors the Oregon game from last year when they went in and got absolutely flamed.
Very high on UCF this year, as you should be. I think that'll be a pretty solid team, and that is a brutal matchup for Colorado on the roads. That's got to be a loss. So through that game right now, Colorado still 3-2, still feeling okay, still above 500, but they haven't gotten to their worst part of the schedule yet. Jovan, then they got to play Kansas State. And although it will be a home game, that is a brutal matchup against a ranked squad who has been playing some really good football over the last couple seasons.
Yeah, and not just a really good team, but that's one of the few teams in the Big 12 that beats you with physicality, which, as we learned from Colorado last season, and they haven't really made too many improvements on that front this year to really move the needle. They can't handle that all that well. So they do get the benefit of a bye week before that game, but so does Kansas State. So I don't think it helps them all that much. I think they really have trouble with Kansas State too, and that's a loss.
That's a loss. 3-3 through the first half of the season, Jovan, on pace to cash the over on their win total. But wait, there's more. We got to talk about their brutal strength of schedule and conference play here. They got to go on the road at Arizona, Jovan, and face an offensive firepower team with Noah Fafita, a team that's got, weapons galore. McMillan, the stud receiver. They are going to have a tough time keeping up with Arizona, especially on the road. Now, if this was a home game for Colorado, I could see them maybe matching the tempo, matching the offensive fireworks from Arizona at home, with their crowd behind them. But on the roads, against one of the best sneaky good quarterbacks in college football, that sounds like trouble for Colorado and Shedeur Sanders. I've got them losing at Arizona, and that one could get ugly. Should be plenty of points.
I think we do differ a little bit there. I think it's a loss and a win for Arizona, but I think this is going to be a super entertaining game in the sense that I think they can go blow for blow because it's going to be, like you did say, a game with a lot of points. So entertaining game, a game that I don't really think they get drubbed in, but again, still I think it's a loss.
Okay, probably going to be must-see TV. Should be plenty of points. The over, the total is going to be extremely high in that game. The over might be a good look as well. Either way, we've got them losing that game, and they are 3-4 through their first 7 games of the season, trending downwards, much like last year when they fell apart towards the end of the year. Then they got to play a scrappy, sneakily tough team, Jovan, here, Cincinnati. Now, everybody thinks that's going to be a cupcake game. Do we think Cincinnati gives them any trouble this season?
So Baylor's one of the teams that they also do have a 5.5 win total, just like Cincinnati, but they're a team that's on my radar in the Big 12 that nobody's really talking about. I gave them the win in that Baylor game. I also really like Cincinnati, and I think they're going to take a step after what we saw last year. So I think Cincinnati, call it what you want. I don't know what it's going to be at that point, but maybe an upset because I assume people would pick Colorado in that game in Colorado. Again, Cincy, another physical team, kind of like Kansas State, but not as good at it. They outgained a lot of their opponents last year. They were just losing the turnover battle. They had some, lack of luck in terms of a lot of plays. I think that's going to bounce the other way this year, and I think they beat Colorado in Colorado.
Okay. We've got an upset here. Not good for the Buffs, but you know what? We were very generous early on in this schedule going over the win total, Jovan. We gave them some early on wins when we were 50-50 on the fence. Let's give them a loss here, and let's have Cincinnati pulling off the upset as this Buffs team continues to trend downwards, much like they did in 2023. All right, Jovan. So through the Cincy game, the Colorado Buffs, a.k.a. the Colorado Coach Primes, 3-5. Not looking too great after a solid start to the year. Then they got to go play at Texas Tech, Jovan. Do we think they pull off a win there? That is a brutal place to play.
Yeah, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt here because I think that's a toss-up game. And this one, I think the benefit of the bye week really does help them because just like Arizona, they can match Texas Tech's play style because there's going to be a lot of points, really wide open game. So I'm going to give them the win, even though it's a really tough place to play at Lubbock. That's going to be a huge game at Texas Tech. And what do you know about Texas Tech? They're always average to just like a decent team. And every time they have these big games in Lubbock, they always make it super fun, but they never come through. So I kind of feel like that's going to be the story here, and I'll give them the win.
All right, we'll give them the win on the road. That's going to be an impressive, story if they can pull that off. But I think it's pretty clear they probably go 1-1 between those games against Cincinnati and Texas Tech, and I feel like that's pretty fair.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so either way, whether they win against Cincy or Texas Tech, we've got them upsetting Texas Tech and losing to Cincy. They're going to be 4-5. Post the Texas Tech game, that's not a great outlook with 3 games left, especially looking at these opponents that are sneaky tough. Jovan, they got to play the Utah Utes. And although they don't have to play on the road in that game, that is a brutal matchup against a very, very physical squad that should bully them around on their home fields. Give me the Utes. They win that game and make Colorado go to 4-6 on the year.
as long as Cam Rising is up and healthy by the time we get to November 16, I don't think the Buffs stand much of a chance in that game. So, yeah,
Sure.
I'm with you.
All right. Then they got to go travel to Kansas. Jovan, that's a sneaky tough matchup as well. That Kansas program has been getting better every year over the last couple. I wouldn't want to go play at Kansas, especially seeing them play at home over the last couple seasons. They have dominated. That could be a loss as well here.
Yeah, I kind of agree. And I'll bunch the last two games because I think we're in the same headspace about them generally. Like, I don't think these are wins, either of them for Colorado, but I wouldn't be shocked if one of them is an upset. I guess maybe more so looking at that game at home against Oklahoma State to close the season. The thing is, that still puts us at 5 wins. So, yeah. Regardless, I mean, Kansas, that'll be an entertaining game. Oklahoma State, I would say, whenever they have lofty expectations, that's when they're not as good, and then vice versa. Whenever they're kind of slept on like last year, that's when they're good. I wouldn't be shocked to see them drop that one to close the year in Colorado. But again, we're sitting at 5 wins if that is the case. And I feel like we've been pretty generous giving them games, I don't know, at Texas Tech and, places at in the beginning of the season as well, at Nebraska. So, yeah, 5 wins, I think, is where I have them at.
I've got them losing the last 3 games of the year to Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State, going 4-8 on the season. But like Jovan said, even if you give them 1 win out of those last 3 games, which is going to be tough, that only puts them at 5 wins for the season, right? And Jovan, on paper, everyone's going to be expecting the Colorado Buffs to get much better this season after a brutal year last year where they barely won 4 games and really tailed off towards the end of the season. They brought in a bunch of new players. They built up this team once again. They've gotten the O-line situation figured out for Shedeur. Well, I need to see it because I still think it's going to take a couple years to get this program where it needs to be. Everyone in the public thinks that it happens overnight. All you got to do is hire Coach Prime. It takes years to build a college football program. That's why you got to respect guys like Saban who have done it and kept it for so long. Coach Prime, look, big name guy. He's going to get that program right, but it's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen right away in year 2. All right, we saw their win total last year, teeter back and forth between 3.5 and 4. Jovan, obviously everybody knows I took the under wins for them last season, and they snuck over. This year in a much tougher conference, their win total is up at 5.5, and the over is the most bet future in college football this season. The sports books very overexposed on the over. That's why we're seeing the over getting odds like minus 140 and the under is plus 120. All right, Jovan, I think we got it right where we want them. We don't fear it at all. We lock in the under 5.5 wins at plus 120. We go about our day. We just went through this entire schedule over here. We're being very, very generous, giving them wins at times we thought they could potentially lose, and they still only had 4 or 5 wins.
Yeah. So I don't think this is a bold team. And I came into this year excited to back them because I was excited about the potential continuity of getting that team and the Coach Prime system for a year, but then everybody transferred out and you got a whole new batch of guys. So that's not really there. And they're dealing with a pretty tough schedule. So I don't even think it's a matter of Colorado not being good enough. I just think it's a pretty tough situation for them to be in looking at this schedule. So 5.5 wins, I will be on the under with you.
Sure. And I will have $1,000 on it. You heard it here first, running it back from last year, a 4-unit play, my favorite future of the college football season. Lock this one in before the season starts in about 30 days.